Hey there, Chelsea fans. I just wanted to give you a quick update before the pod starts that we have launched our very own website. That's right. Now you can go to londonisbluepodcast.com or londonbluepod.com so you can sign up for early access to all of our new episodes. You can give us your feedback and request guests and even support the pod to help us grow. Thanks again for all of your support. Now, let's get to the good stuff. Welcome back, Chelsea fans, to the London is Blue podcast, a podcast made for the fans, by the fans, celebrating the champions of England. Come on, you Blues. Welcome, Chelsea fans, to your first official therapy session of this season. Our staff here at the London is Blue podcast will be guiding you through a series of sounds from nature to help you relax after your traumatic experience from the weekend. To help me soothe your pain are Dan and Nick. And just to clarify, Nick, neither of you have any medical certifications, correct? This isn't real?
I do not personally, although I think that Dan is a doctor of love, and
yeah, we've been spending too much time together because that was the joke I was about to make about you.
Dude, you're the one who's married, Dan, so I feel like you're going to be able to provide everyone a nice sense of love and keep everyone calm.
At least some couples counseling between what is the Chelsea fan base and our emotion right now.
Yeah.
Tensions are high, Chelsea fans, but, in order to progress you through the steps of recovery, we'll start by recounting the events that happened in Manchester. We'll discuss how that made us feel. We'll answer all of your questions from Twitter, and we'll end by thinking happy thoughts of just pounding the Baggies of West Bromwich Albion. So to start, as we discussed, Nick, we had the first, as they proclaimed it, title bout of the season, headed up to Manchester City, Etihad Stadium. Martin Atkinson was the referee. He definitely got his time on the TV, that's for sure. And the final score was Chelsea 0, Manchester City 3. And we had some predictions, Nick.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to count this as my first official win of the year, but I predicted a 3-1 going into the match. Dan had a 1-1, and Brandon had a 1-0 win for Chelsea. So it's not an official win, but I'm definitely edging towards the closer end of the spectrum.
And I think we talked about it last week. We weren't hoping that was going to be the case, but
right.
From a profit standpoint, I think I might be the doctor of love, but you're closest to being able to divine the future, apparently.
Well, again, not the result I wanted to predict, but just an overwhelming sense that was going to be the case.
Well, Dan, we did have to make a couple of changes to the lineup. Run us through that. How did Chelsea show up today? What did they look like?
Well, Oscar picking up the injury and training kind of really pulled himself out of the lineup. So we ended up getting a chance to see Ramirez jump into our traditional lineup with Willian and Hazard. We saw Fabregas and Matic play together, and then we had Costa up front, hanging out there by his lonesome usually. And then we had Ivanovic, Cahill, Terry, Azpilicueta, and then the suspended Courtois made way for a little bit of Begovic, Asmir between the posts this week.
A lot of Begovic today. That guy, he put in a shift. Definitely was unlucky on a couple of the situations he caught himself in, but you feel pretty good having Begovic as your backup goalkeeper. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I'm looking at the bench. To me, it was a light bench. Zuma, who ended up coming on, Falcao, who ended up coming on, a re-emergence. Someone found Juan Cuadrado on the training pitch, decided that he was going to play a part in this game. We had Remy, Mikel, Blackman, Jamal Blackman as the backup keeper, and Ruben Loftus-Cheek as their bench. And I think, without getting too far into this, you look at the bench that we have and the bench that City put out there, and it's telling who has more depth.
More depth and more wages, but we won't get into that at this point. Guys, as we jump into it, Aguero did get the goal in the 32nd minute in the first half, but then their last two goals didn't come till the end of the game, and that can be typical when a team is really chasing the game. They're looking to get that equalizer. That corner kick with Vincent Company, that was tough to handle. But as we're going into this game, there's a lot of talk about Jose's record and against the top four and Pellegrini specifically. So you hear Man City have only won 2 of their last 9 against Chelsea. Awesome. Chelsea have not lost any of their last 28 games in August. All these stats. And we're going in this game feeling confident. I know Rory on the Chelsea fans channel, he even was like, I think we can go up there and pip a 1-0 win. And that just didn't really happen. The first thing that really happened in this game was Aguero got through one-on-one, Dan.
Well, it was less than 10 seconds into the match, and we're already giving Aguero an opportunity, through a brilliantly played ball in to test Asmir and really see if he's a good stand-in. I think that initially through the preseason and maybe even for those who maybe watched only the first half of last week against Swansea, may not have seen Begovic kind of pop into form, but he, to the point you made, Brandon, put in a shift today and was tested early and often throughout this match, specifically by Aguero. I mean, Aguero had 4 shots by himself. That's not counting all the other attempts that other players had against goal as well.
So, Nick, Mourinho said recently that it would take a month for Chelsea to be at their peak. Are you willing to wait? We've got West Brom, Crystal Palace, and maybe Everton, depending on how long you want to stretch that month.
I mean, everybody should be willing to wait. I think the overwhelming theme of this podcast is not to panic. But you do look at those 3 matches, and away at West Brom has been our bogey match with the lower level side for the past 4 seasons. Crystal Palace obviously is a much improved side. They gave Arsenal a real run today. And then Everton just beat Southampton 3-0 on Saturday. So you look at those 3 matches, and all 3 are going to be extremely challenging. And something we brought up last week was that there aren't going to be easy matches. It's just not going to happen this year. So, okay, Mourinho, it's going to take a month. That's great, but you look at the next month of games, and it's going to be a challenge. I mean, the one thing that I want to clarify for everybody, because it just seems like people have forgotten or ignored this fact, is that the transfer market's not closed for another couple weeks. So for those hitting that big red panic button right now, I think you need to just take a step back from the ledge, because there's going to be a lot, not only with Chelsea, but the rest of the Premier League, that happens in the next 2 weeks, and it's going to get crazy. I would expect a much improved Chelsea team going into September.
I think that point too with the transfer market piece as well is if we rewind back to the late part of last season, as it hadn't finally wrapped up the title, but it was within reach, and the clamoring of some fans who maybe were like, well, why are we not playing this young player or giving this chance to this youth talent? And if we kind of look forward today, and you don't hear that, but that same general mass or population is wondering why we're not spending money, why we're not bringing in big signings. And I think the point is that you cannot have it both ways. You cannot have tons of young talent flood the team, and realistically, that's not, maybe 1 per team is really where you would have it. And if you look at youth in the team, yes, he didn't come through Chelsea, but like Zuma is that youth right now in the team that's kind of making his way and an impact on play. And then I think in turn, the signing piece, that's starting, but some of the positions that we were looking to fill, there's not necessarily great talent, or it's very expensive talent. I think that there's now the conflict within the club apparently of how much to spend and a willingness to spend for some of those players.
Yeah, and I think, Dan, you made, it was a podcast or 2 ago that you made your really smart financial analysis of, the new TV deal and its implications on this transfer market. My question for, Dan, you rightly pointed out again that the people who are clamoring for all this youth to be bedded in with the team, that's a really easy argument to make when you're 8 points up in the league and have just won the title. Like, that's not hard at all. I'm guessing that not many of those same people are looking today as to make the solution of putting Ruben Loftus-Cheek in for Ramirez, or putting Izzy Brown in at striker. These are very, very difficult things to do. This is the balance. I think the toughest job that Mourinho has in his second spell is, when do you bring those guys in? And you're definitely not going to bring them in for one of the biggest matches of the year away at City, when we had been pretty much outplayed by Swansea. So I think for those who really want youth, I'm with you 100%. I think it's great, but did you not think United was going to spend money? Did you not think City was going to spend money? Did you not think Liverpool or Arsenal were going to spend money? These were a competition, and they all spent relative decent amounts of money in the off season. And I think now everyone realizes that we have to go do the same, because our squad depth just isn't there.
Well, I think it speaks to the global level of the game and how quickly it's evolving. I think we look at the fact that NBC has put together $1 billion deal to broadcast 6 years of the Premier League in the United States, where if we think about 10, 15 years ago, that money would have been laughed at. But I think now it's been heralded as a very smart and intelligent get by that network, and that's just more money that's going to go into the coffers of these teams. That kind of bringing it back to that a quote that we heard a lot last season was Chelsea is a for championship organization, not necessarily a for profit. I mean, everything is for profit, but
Right.
I think this is where the club does have an opportunity to between now and the end of the window truly assess is someone like John Stones worth the extra investment now versus 1 to 2 transfer windows when his price might skyrocket and we're in more of a need of hurt in a key position. Do we sign or gamble on someone like a Witzel now, or do we try to wait for someone who I know is a favorite of Nick, like Koke, 1 or 2 transfer windows from now, when he might become available and might be able to be pried away for cash and player.
Yeah, just as kind of a last point on this. We'll get into some of the transfer stuff later, but this, by the end of this window, we're going to kind of know the intent of the club, right? I think that in 2013, there were a bunch of people saying, well, why aren't we getting Diego Costa? We had to wait a little extra time, and then we eventually did get him and Cesc Fabregas, and that was one of the better windows in memory. But I look at this, and there was a comparison made on Twitter to 2007 when Mourinho was very perturbed by the forced entry of Shevchenko and other lower-priced players in the effort to kind of turn a profit at the club, and that was part of the beginning of the end for him. And you could draw some parallels this offseason as well, but I think there's a lot more stability here than in 2007. So I look at that as just kind of like a parallel to keep in mind when we talk about this transfer market situation later.
All right, let's play a game as we move on. It is called Who Did Worse, the defensive unit or the attacking unit? And we're going to go ahead and start in the defensive unit, because I think that what happened today that has never happened before is worth us starting out at. So, as all of you know, whether or not you watched the match or not, John Terry was subbed off by Mourinho for the first time. Not saying Terry's never been subbed off, but never by Jose. And Chad, at Chelsea Chatter, he tweeted that John Terry has ended his run of 3,555 consecutive Premier League minutes. We know that he, captained us to the title last season by playing every single minute. And today, they had to make a tactical change, Jose said. Dan, that's what his reasoning was.
Well, I think, there's one clip that's getting played around, which is more, that I made, John the captain, and I basically gave him the opportunity to get him on. But then he, has followed it up with, comments as well too, saying that, he's the only one that played with John in every game. Others had taken him off. You look at like Rafa Benitez, that he brought the captain off and he was on the bench, but he's still a captain on the bench because the armband's an armband. Um, I can tell you that he was not dancing in the dressing room. I can also tell you he was not having a bad reaction, and really talked about it as a tactical move to put Zuma on, because there was just no way to deal with. We saw last season when Zuma came in and got to basically put Aguero in his back pocket for the entire day, which most of those pants don't even have, those shorts don't even have pockets, so I don't even know how that's possible, but he did it anyway. Like, he stitched together a pocket to put him into it for that moment. And so a lot of fans, I think, thought that Zuma would start and get an opportunity to play, potentially, where Ramirez was slotted in, or even where, maybe Cahill was slotted in. And I think this was just more, who was maybe performing a little better, who was going to give up the pace, and it came down to Cahill or Terry. And I think that Zuma did positively impact the game. So tactically, it was a great decision.
Well, Nick, what about Ivanovic? We all know that poor vice captain had a nightmare of a game last week. He started off a little bit brighter, but we knew it was always going to be tough because he's got Raheem Sterling on his wing.
Right. Now, I don't know what happened, but it just seemed as soon as he was made vice captain, an honor that was definitely deserved for his tenure at Chelsea and the way he's went about his business, that he has just been beaten over and over and over, positionally out of sorts, someone who is pinched in far too often, leaving too much space on the wing for crosses and other attacks to come in. And Raheem Sterling's not a guy that I fear by any means. I looked at the rest of their lineup, and I fear Yaya Toure, David Silva, Sergio Aguero, Wilfred Boney, all of these types of players, Jesus Navas, more than I fear Raheem Sterling. But you knew coming off of his performance against Jefferson Montero last week that this was obviously a spot where City was going to attack Chelsea, and he hasn't ever really, since 2008, had a ton of competition. If you can remember Jose Bosingua as a player for Chelsea, never really gave him a competition, never really gave him a fight. I don't know what it is, and maybe it's just he's really struggling for some fitness right now. But he's always been one of the fittest and most athletic guys on the team, so it's kind of weird to see that decline. And then it's smart. He always played smart. Even as physical as he is, and as many yellow cards as he's accrued over the last few years, he's always been a smart player positionally. So. Maybe he needs some competition or a fire under his butt or something, but he has looked horrendous in the first two matches.
Look at the fact, too, that, just after we come back from halftime, 48th minute, makes the challenge on Sterling because he's kind of getting beat off the ball. And, it kind of harkened back to the Man United game last season where we were up 1-0. He's getting beat on the side and makes a poor challenge and ends up getting carded for that. That one took him out of the match. This was more of a scenario where he really is, to the point that you made, Nick, has not looked sharp. And I think the competition piece is spot on. That every position in this squad needs some level of competition to drive up the talent. You look at what happened when Cuadrado came in at the end of last season and how that helped influence Williams' game. And then since then, unfortunately, Cuadrado has proved to not necessarily be as much of a challenger to Willian, so he's kind of potentially backed off a little bit. But everyone needs competition.
Well, Jake Cohen on Twitter made a really good point earlier, and if you don't follow him, you need to. But he basically said that in the span of 3 months, Branislav Ivanovic went from one of the best defenders in the Premier League by every fan's reaction and interaction to kind of the scum of the earth, and it just doesn't happen like that. I think that when we look at this podcast particularly, you just form is temporary, class is permanent. You can't just say he's a terrible player. He will get back. I'm sure that by the end of the year he's going to be much more serviceable than he is right now, if not back to his elite defending status. I mean, he wasn't wanted by Bayern Munich just for shits and giggles. So let's all press, kind of the chill button on this. But his form is worrying, certainly because our back line plays so cohesively, and he just hasn't seemed like he's been a part of it.
Well, I think to the point too, with kind of Terry getting subbed off, Cahill kind of getting injured again. There's been a lot more reliance on our right back and left back. Azpilicueta has seemed to kind of handle a lot of the additional pressure kind of being put on him with some of the players maybe not tracking back a little bit. Ivanovic has, in absence of attacking ingenuity or idea or a spark of life, is still trying to help support that and also trying to support defense, and he's not necessarily doing either terribly well. And I think that's where, without being able to rely upon the back and not being able to rely upon the front, he's kind of caught in a very, very difficult position as a player where even the best instruction is not going to help support him, because really the support he needs is the players around him to be playing at the right level.
Well, at this rate, Gary Cahill is not going to play another game this season because he keeps getting punched in the face by goalkeepers. So moving on to the offensive half of the pitch, lack of offensive production. I don't think it's necessarily personnel as much as it is we're not driving at the goal. Costa's first shot came after the 90th minute. It came in stoppage time today at the end of the game. He, in my personal opinion, I think he got much service today. I thought that Hazard and Willian and Fabregas played wide around him instead of directly to him, and if he did get it, he was 40 yards away from the goal, and it was a little give and go. So I thought that we were the most dangerous. The best chance we got in the whole game was when Hazard played Costa in. He's running at Kompany, and he ends up cutting back and finding Hazard, who was a little unlucky not to score, but, that's where I thought Chelsea were the best, and we really just didn't find Costa. Thinking about how we played today, Nick, kind of what did you think about the attacking? We can say the attacking 4 or 5.
Yeah. I mean, it's not today. It is going back to calendar 2015, and it's just not good enough. And it's not just because of the visually appealing side of football and what people expect from a team with this many superstars in it. I put that off to the side as its own thing because, as long as you win, it doesn't matter. But it becomes a problem when you don't win, and when you look as toothless and as tentative as this team has played in the last calendar year on offense, it's downright embarrassing how many side and back passes that were not driving towards goal we had in their offensive third today. I don't know what it is. Cesc has turned off his magic button. He has not found a player in that type of space in a while. I also look at Hazard, as a big part of this, because he's just done this either trying to beat 3 players at once thing, which ends up just how you think it would, or he tries this backtracking thing and crossfield passes to Ivanovic that don't really go anywhere. So again, I don't know what it is. I think the amount of cute that this team is trying to do right now is insane. You could argue, and I hate to say this, maybe this will rile the team up if they hear this, but they look super Arsenal-y right now, and that's not a good thing.
Just to clarify, that is not a good thing, people.
Yeah.
Dan, Falcao had the most shots for Chelsea today, and he had 2, and he came on in the 80th minute.
That's a sobering stat line, if there ever was one. I mean, credit to Falcao for coming in. I think some people might say that he really helped to create a goal opportunity for Man City late in the game.
Yep.
Directly, not indirectly. But I think that speaks to the fact that really, if we're talking about like shots on target, they had 8, we had 3. If we are generous enough to include off target, they had 14, we had 6. If we include blocked, they have 18, we have 9. And then let's just say you throw in some woodwork there, you have 18 to 10. So the toothless, not really creating opportunities, and a lot of side backward passes, and not a willingness to kind of maybe take on individuals to try and make a goal happen. I mean, the Ramirez almost goal was very nice looking. It would have been fantastic, but that gets into the game of ifs, and I'll leave that to post-match press conferences.
As you're kind of talking about that, and Nick, you've talked about as well the backwards and sideways passes. I just think Chelsea need to be more direct. When we get in that final third, like we have to get into the 18-yard box. Just proof of that is only 50% of Chelsea's shots were outside of the 18-yard box. Like we were just way too happy to shoot from 20 and further out. In comparison, 60% of Manchester City shots were inside the 18-yard box. And it's only a 10% swing, but when you get into the actual numbers of it, it gets a lot closer. So again, my thing with Chelsea's, I think that they just need to continue to work their offensive system and working on getting that ball in the box, because that's where Costa is most effective as well.
Just one last note on this, and without getting into the system debate too much, because the system is only as good as its players, right?
Sure.
But I think we would all agree that Chelsea is best on offense and on defense as a collective when they have a strong midfield put together. And I think that this team, with the way that things are going and the way that things are assembled, needs to play something of a 4-3-3 or really stack the midfield, because when you looked at opportunities on goal today, even the Ramirez chance, to me, everybody just wants to go forward and stand in a spot and just stand there and not do anything. I can't even tell you how many times when Hazard decided he wanted to run at people that there was just no one there. I mean, Costa has looked a little lazy to me, and even though he gets gets on camera by doing other stuff, I mean, he wasn't really a willing runner today, and I think there needs to be some shift in how this team is balanced, because right now it's just not good.
Well, I think, too, to the last point, I think maybe on Costa, is that there were plenty of times that he was having to run back to try to bring someone into the attacking conversation because they were not moving the ball up far enough for him to even be a part of the equation.
Yeah.
So I think that is, distribution of the ball forward in that quick counterattacking way is non-existent right now. And also we've seen some teams play some pretty good defense against us as well. I think that there was a lot of physicality, both with Swansea and now with Man City, and we just some of the players did not take well to that.
Yeah, well, Brandon, I think part of that problem is that Juan Cuadrado made his way onto the field for in a Chelsea uniform today. I made the point, and I want Brandon to kind of comment on this, because our good buddy Dan Levine made quite the tweet about this. But I made the argument before the match that Victor Moses didn't even make the bench today, which you would have thought he would have been a weapon, given Dan's analysis and Brandon's analysis of how we need to be more direct. Victor Moses is maybe the most direct player we have. He runs at people in a bullish fashion, but Juan Cuadrado made an appearance today, and I'm wondering, Brandon, what you thought of it.
Well, let's go ahead and read off Dan's tweet, who said, and I quote, "Cuadrado being tried in a new position today. Instead of watching the game from the bench, he's watching it from the pitch," end quote.
Just a gem.
Cool. It was fantastic. This really surprised me. So I watched the game at Brits today. Shout out to the Twin Cities Blues. I picked up my scarf. Fantastic. Watching the game with everyone today. But one guy there, I kid you not, I don't remember what point in the game is. He looks at us and goes, "What do you think? Put Cuadrado in? Tell him this is his last chance. Either do something or you're done." And not more than like 5 minutes later, Cuadrado came on, and we all kind of looked at him and were like, "Damn it, you just jinxed it."
Yeah.
He just kind of looks out of his realm. At one point, Ivanovic is yelling at him to step to not. It was either Nasri or Sterling out on the wing. So like I said, I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think he fits into the Premier League and the style of play that is there. So I'm kind of hoping that we start to limit his minutes, and if anything, he's got to be played in cup matches where there's a lot less pressure and a lot less competition. That's my opinion. Another thing that we kind of had to deal with today was the refereeing. It was kind of interesting to me. Everyone's like, Mark Atkinson, he's great, he's experienced. In my opinion, it almost seemed like he favored City in the first half, Dan, but then Chelsea in the second.
Well, I would almost say that it seemed like he was willing to let the game run its course for a very long time. I mean, we didn't see the first yellow card out of his pocket until 33 minutes when he popped one on Vincent Kompany. But you could argue that there were several opportunities where David Silva could have picked up 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 yellow cards throughout the match. I mean, I don't necessarily know if favor is the word I would use. I think ultimately it was a game that was not managed initially well. I think you have two sides that clearly do not like each other. Vincent Kompany wished for Eden Hazard to have diarrhea through the game. So clearly there's there's a little bit of fun and levity when they're off the pitch, but on the pitch it is a serious level of competition. And I think some refs seem to want to, in those moments, quickly establish a yellow card early on to let them know what they will and won't tolerate. And if you're going to let the game go half an hour plus before you make that stamp on it saying, hey, this is what is acceptable and this is what isn't, then that is going to allow for some level of inadequacy to be felt on either side. I think we can feel it from maybe Diego Costa deserved a penalty. Probably not. Maybe someone needed to be sent off for knocking him in the back of the head. Maybe but it definitely was a massive hard elbow, but didn't look super intentional. I don't know if it was favor, more this again looking at some type of reason to maybe explain away a really just not their performance.
Fair enough. I mean, as we already talked about, Ramirez's goal was wrongfully called offsides. That sucks. But, I guess, Nick, do you feel like Man City are the title favorites right now? They've +6 goal differential, 0 goals conceded. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, and again, yes, they are. I don't think there's any doubt that they've looked the best by far and away this season. I feel like if they played Man United right now, or Spurs, or Liverpool, or Arsenal, that the scoreline would be very similar. So they're prohibitive favorites. They've won titles before, so they have that under their belt, and they just look good. I mean, Yaya Toure looks really good right now, but the transfer window is not closed yet, and that could also be, to play devil's advocate, they look to add Nicolas Otamendi to their squad. So there's going to be movement made. To call them favorites right now, I don't think is that much of a stretch. But again, it's just. Let's just wait until the end of August and really make some assessments.
Dan, do you agree?
I don't make a habit out of agreeing with Nick, but I would say that without question, I think that they are. I think people will jokingly call them mercenaries for the money, but mercenaries also have a habit too of being put together to do a job and get it completed. And this looks like a side that has been very well built to go out and achieve a very specific result. And I would tell you that among any other team, the Spurs still can't get it together. Arsenal have moments of excellence and moments of terrible play. Man United are looking good, but definitely still have some spots to fix up in. We don't necessarily look 100% of the way there, and City just look like they are ready to do what we did last season, which is run away with some early points and try not to let anyone catch back up.
Well, the good news is Man City did crash and burn. We were tied on points January 1st, and we know how that ended. So even if they get a bit of a lead, I wouldn't be too concerned out there, Chelsea fans. But we have this question of what's wrong with Chelsea. That seems to be what everyone on Twitter today is erupting about, not quietly discussing. It is erupting. Nick, the strength of the team is cohesiveness and mental strength. Where do we stand with that?
I mean, you see what John Terry was looking like on the bench today?
Confused?
Because that look tells me basically everything I need to know. This team did it last year. There was a lot of cohesion. There was a lot of fortitude. All those classic buzzwords you can use about Chelsea and how they performed for almost 15 years now. But holy crap, man! It just looks like maybe players took vacations too long. Maybe there's something going on in the locker room. I don't see the same mental strength today. When we went down 1-0, there wasn't that classic charge. Like I remember Lampard would, after an opposing team would score, Lampard would grab the ball out of the back of the net, take it to the center circle, and have a talk with Ballack or have a talk with Drogba or Terry and just get everyone ready to go on the attack again. Like, they just scored on us. That's unacceptable. Let's go get one back. There isn't that fight right now for me, and that's a little troubling.
Dan, what about Jose? Is this classic Jose, or are we maybe seeing a different version?
I think a lot is potentially made of his fleeting nature or inability to kind of stay settled for a long time. And I think it's hard to read into the mind of a tactical genius in many ways, but also someone who can very quickly pick out specific points and try to, in his own way, meld the world to the way that he sees it within the way he speaks. I think someone on Twitter made a comment about him basically trying to filibuster his way through the post-match interview today to try to not get a question. And I think he's probably embarrassed. I think he is a winner. He likes to win. He doesn't like losing, specifically in this fashion. I think we end up having a scenario too where not only did he lose, but now he's losing to people he doesn't like. He has no blood or tears or shed or lost for rather Pellegrini or for Arsene Wenger, and now he's lost to both of them in very quick fashion. And I think that the players and the way that the effort that they're putting in and the way that they're maybe taking direction or the way that they're executing has to be frustrating. Money can't solve every problem. I think it helps in some areas to be able to go out and buy the players that we want, and to not get that can be frustrating too. So I think it's many tiny things that are now building up to be massive points of frustration, and it doesn't help with the media or the fans and some of the conversation this week building up to the match, and what certainly is going to come in this next week will take a lot of mental resolve, not just from Mourinho, but from the players in the organization to not get lost in what the singular focus is, and that's to go out and win football in whatever way, shape, or form we can piece it together.
Yeah, I mean, the distractions thing, Chelsea has fought through more distractions than any other team in the Premier League. This is a squad that has always kind of had an edge to it as far as the locker room goes. There's always been something, saying, there's just we're a little bit harder than every other team. This is the way we are, and we're not going to change. And those distractions now are being brought up again and again and again. And, much like me, I think Jose has a lot of things he can't be bothered by, but he keeps on getting asked about. And whether that's tactical substitutions like the John Terry thing today, or medical staff questions, things that might not have gone too well during the week, it just seems like there's not enough attention being played to the results on the field and to training and to all these other things that really matter. So I'm wondering too if there's just a little bit of disconnect about how the organization is being run. You see a lot of similarities just within the last 3 months with how he kind of left in 2007, and I'm hoping that they just get over it, because he's the best manager in the world. We have one of the best clubs in the world. There's enough money here to go around. There's enough titles to be won. All of these positive things, people just up and forget when things get tough. And that's just unacceptable. It's stupid. Don't be those people. Our fans are smarter than that.
All right, Chelsea fans. Well, we have now talked about what happened. We've talked about how it made us feel. Let us know if we missed anything, though. Keep us honest. But it's true. But now we're going to answer your questions, because We got a ton of questions on Twitter, so we thank you guys. Starting us off, we had at NY's CFC, that stands for New York's Chelsea Fan Club. Who should be stepping up, Dan? Who do you feel like it needs to replace the leadership lost by Drogba?
Well, I think that we named him vice captain for a reason. I think Ivanovic is the individual that I think anyone would be looking to have step up and support John Terry in the conversation within the team. Also look at someone like Gary Cahill, who quiet, national team player, plays a lot of minutes, has history with the club as well too, and really could be speaking up maybe more to kind of help rally and support the team moving forward. And I think it's hard to put it together maybe, but I think anyone who has time and tenure with Chelsea should be trying to band it together. And maybe it's not one, but maybe it's multiple people that we'd like to see move forward.
All right. At Che Carter B tweeted us Mourinho being diluted and Wenger-like. Nick, what do you think about that comparison?
I mean, don't be too much in the moment here, because there is nobody in world football that plays the media like a fiddle. There's nobody who plays the fans like a fiddle. He is the best in the world at what he does. Now, I do not think that his press conference was very accurate today. Again, I think the filibuster comparison that Dan brought up is so incredibly accurate. Just he's saying a lot of words without saying anything. Is kind of how I feel about that. So he's made his bed here. I think now is kind of the point where he focuses on the squad. He takes all the heat the rest of the season, and everything else just kind of falls into place. There was somebody on Twitter today who said that it's always somebody else's fault with Mourinho. And there are points where I see that opinion being valid, but there are a lot of times where I think Mourinho takes most of the heat, 90% of the heat in an interview for lack of performance from his players. And I think that the reason his players perform for him so admirably most of the time is that he is able to stick up for them and kind of go through tough times with them. And let's not forget that just because we're having a little bit of a rough patch.
I like that. Transfers, weaknesses, assess the squad. How much will we need to spend? Who will we get? That is from everyone. All of you out there want to know that. We have talked about weaknesses today. We've even assessed the squad. We talked about the defensive half, the offensive half, and kind of where we're going to go from there. As far as how much we will spend, Nick alluded to it. We don't know, but we think that this window will really signify what Chelsea's intentions are as a club out there, Chelsea fans. We think that we now have 3 poor results, Arsenal in the cup, or I guess the Shield. Now Swansea and Man City. They need something. Chelsea are going to go and do it. So who will we get? I don't know. I think we've got Dan voted. Who'd you vote for what position?
I would say that it would be nice to secure Stones, even though it'll be expensive. And there was another comment too, asking if we think Isco would be a potential candidate, and I think that would absolutely be a superb signing.
And Nick, you agree with the whole central attacking midfielder, correct?
I do. I look now, just after seeing today, and my assessment of where the weakness is the midfield is just not performing well enough right now. I think that Cesc needs somebody else, in a 4-3-3 type of format to complement him when he's having an off day and to start more interchange with in the midfield. I would love somebody like Koke, knowing that Pogba is most likely not a realistic target for any club in the world right now, just because of his price. I think a Koke type of figure who might be just as equally unrealistic would be a phenomenal complement to what Cesc is and what Nemanja Matic is. If you look at how he plays for Atletico Madrid, it is insane, the amount of work that he puts in. And I think that when we played them a couple of years ago in the Champions League, Mourinho kind of fell in love with a few select players on that team, and I think he's been one of those long admired targets.
All right. And that actually kind of falls up with Avinash at Avinash Patnaik. Tried. He said he agrees, Nick. He said we need a creative midfielder. When Cescas having an off day, we lose it all. Isco, perhaps. Tweet at us. Let us know what is the missing link. Personally, I would just push Willian in and get him in the central midfield rotation and actually get either Moses out there or someone who's going to keep width. I think that we are just way too narrow going forward. Last question, Dan at JamieB6 wants to know, what is Kennedy's impact, I guess? What's his impact going to be on the Chelsea squad this season?
I would say given the current form and given what we may or may not sign, I imagine that he will be a wonderful addition to our loan army for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, I think so as well. All right, those are your questions. Keep them coming. We love it. It gives us something else to talk about, Chelsea fans. Let us know, who do you think Chelsea need to bring in? Absolutely must. No questions asked about the price before this transfer window closes. Nick, on a side note, Chelsea have actually done some business, correct?
Yeah, and in one of the most protracted negotiations of all time with a tiny German club, we finally secured Baba Rahman today from Augsburg. This went back and forth more than I can remember a transfer. And to give Augsburg their due and their credit, they played him a couple of times in the last couple of weeks to signify their intent, which is a very rare thing for a club to do, because if he gets hurt in those matches, then trade value is gone and the signing value is gone. So he has officially joined Chelsea. This is a much needed addition. He will give both of our wing backs some competition. He will obviously give Dave competition on the left, and then Dave will give Branislav some competition for right back again, which is desperately needed. So phenomenal addition. He looks the part. I think we overpaid just a little bit for him, but if he's the type of player that Jose can mold into an Ashley Cole type, then we have him for 10 years, which would be amazing.
Fantastic. Dan, we have some rumor mills that Roma are sniffing around the Chelsea camp.
Yeah, potentially wanting to either make a outright purchase or loan with option to purchase for Kurt Zouma, but I would imagine given his
good luck
ability to truck down players in the middle of the field with WWE-like moves, similar to some players we might have seen today, that will probably not factor into the equation. He seems very suited to either start or to sub in at our squad right now. And we talk about depth. He would leave so much depth out of our side if we did not have him.
Yeah, I think there's one. If there's one guy on the squad right now that's not going anywhere from our second pool of players, it'd be Zouma. I mean, he's been the most impressive so far.
He played both games. He subbed in twice now. All right, moving along. It looks like Juventus are potentially going to bid for Ramirez and Cuadrado. Now, 50% of that makes me excited. The other 50% makes me a little bittersweet. But, if that could free up some cash and we do lose Ramirez, and that gives us maybe the rest of the money to go over the hump for Koke or, somewhere else, I'm actually kind of up for this. I'm interested. I would like to see kind of Chelsea feel us out. And if they could get enough money for Ramirez, that literally they could just give Cuadrado away and I would eat the loss. I'm fine with that personally.
I think you'll eat the loss. I'm not sure if Roman Abramovich is ready to do that.
Oh, come on. We've done worse, right, Torres?
Burn.
All right.
Torres, report to the burn unit.
All right. Now it is, as you can tell, we've progressively lightened the mood in this podcast, right? We started out dark and dreary, and now we're at our happy times. We're looking ahead at potential targets, who's going to come in, who's going to complete the squad. Again, let us know at London Blue Pod on Twitter. But it is time for the final round, us to beat up on the Baggies of West Brom. We're going to be playing them at the Hawthorn, so another road trip. on Sunday, August 23rd. Right now both teams have a draw and a loss, and both of our losses have came from Man City, and they're both 3-0. So I guess as far as we're concerned, we're essentially equal, right, Dan? We're just the same team.
Precisely, yes. We definitely are the exact same type of team.
Well, Chelsea are currently in 16th, which sounds weird saying out loud. West Brom are 18th, technically in the relegation zone, but I don't think they're that worried about being relegated at this point. The past meetings, Chelsea have 5 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses. And Nick, I'm sure you remember the games last season. Both had red cards.
Oh, yeah. And this is... I think the more famous of the two would be Cesc Fabregas pinging a ball and hitting a West Brom player in the face, and that 3-0 loss at the Hawthorns last year. That didn't matter because we had already won the league, but we're going there this year with a lot different implications, right? This is a must-win now. This is something that the players need to step up and make their case for why they should be playing for this club after the last, basically the last 3 or 4 months of results, if we're going to be honest about things. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. This is a bogey location for us to play. We've not played well there for about 6 years. So very interesting little side notes to go into this match.
All right, let's go into this match. I want to hear the good news. Turning the baggies into like a speed bag, like pa 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 pa. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Nick, since you kind of won the prediction, I guess we'll let you go first.
I hate to be the bearer of more average news, but I see this as a 1-1 draw, and simply I would love to predict this as a win. I would love to come out kind of swinging, but our offense just isn't there, and we can look at the defense all we want for a 3-0 loss today, but with the amount of money that we spent on our offensive talent and the amount that they've produced thus far in 2015, it's just not been there. So 1-1 draw.
Dan?
I'm gonna go a little more positive. I'm feeling what we put down and relax a little bit. I think the team will probably have gotten a verbal diarrhea from Mourinho about all the things that we maybe need to do a little bit more differently. I'm going to go 2-0 victory.
All right, there we go. Back on the win streak. Who would have thought that 4 points from our first 3 games would be where we're at, but that's what I'm predicting as well. I think it'll be a 2-1 win, mainly because I think Chelsea is struggling a little bit, transitioning from offense to defense, and we'll see if Gary Cahill can even breathe by the time this next game comes. So Zuma might be in. But so just kind of with those things, and then you go from one goalkeeper to another goalkeeper back to Courtois again. I just think that those are little adjustments that we might give one up. So 2-1 win, just to recap that long-winded explanation. All right, that's going to do us today, Chelsea fans. Let's go ahead and send them on their way with some final thoughts. Remember, some woosah, keep everything happy. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, my closing thought is just kind of on the whole, don't panic. Just don't. I mean, this is 2 matches in. Clearly, it's not been what we expected. Clearly, it's not been good. But if there's any manager in the world that can turn it around, and if there's any group of strong, motivated players that can turn this thing around, it's Chelsea. So don't panic. I could use some expletives here to explain my case, but I won't. I'm going to save those till next week, and just take some happy pills this week. Everything is going to be fine.
I love it. Dan, what is your final parting gift for the fans this week?
It's just that if you're looking for some wonderful matches to watch on the side, Leicester have been pretty fun to watch recently. So currently number 2 in the table, and definitely title contenders this year.
Who would have thunk with Ranieri coming back? You thought they'd be more exciting with their fighting boss Nigel Pearson, but I guess not.
Do you know who's benefited the most from Chelsea kind of being a shit show as a club right now is Jamie Vardy, who apparently had a racist incident last week, and has not been talked about because he isn't a Chelsea player. So it's good for him that he got away with racism, because if that was a Chelsea player, the whole club would be asked to be just canceled for the rest of the year.
Disbanded in whole.
Yep.
All right. Well, my final thought is actually just a note to you guys. I'm going to let you know a little secret. We're going to give you a free gift here. On our website, LondonIsBluePodcast.com, you can sign up to get our episodes before we post them on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud and everywhere. We want to find out who our diehard fans are, and if you go and sign up, we will send you the link before it gets released, and then that way you guys can enjoy it, get on Twitter, share it, and we'll also kind of do some stuff throughout the season for that kind of early listener list. So again, LondonIsBluePodcast.com. Sign up on our listens tab, and also we're on YouTube. Check it out, youtube.com/c/LondonIsBluePodcast. All right, that is a wrap, Chelsea fans. We have now officially taken you through these steps to recovery. Your therapy session is over. Don't hate on other Chelsea fans. We can disagree, but don't make it violent. Don't make it angry. We've got only 1 week till we're back at it, and we're going to pound the Baggies. Come on, you Blues.
Chelsea are the champions. Their third title under Mourinho. They're fourth in the Premier League. They're fifth in all, 60 years after the first. The Blues, by far the best of the bunch.